Hello out there, and what we have today is arguably the most interesting knife of 2017 for me, and it is the Kershaw Deadline number 1087. And I say interesting not because it's the best or the worst, because it's neither, but because there's just a lot of unique characteristics about the knife, a ton of things to talk about, and then also some misinformation. You know, and my experience with the knife has certainly been up and down, and some good, some bad, some questionable kind of things with the knife. So we'll get into all that, but I do need to apologize in advance for any kind of like glare or lack of focus in this video. I've just really struggled with this knife in particular because of just the different shades and the glare that's being created by the flats and the satin there. So I'm not really trying to be J.J. Abrams, but if you see any kind of like lens flares or anything, yeah, again, I apologize. All right, so getting into what this knife is all about, what we have is a blade length of 3.25 inches. It is a really nice Wharncliffe 8CR13 MOV, good little swedge there on top, and just really attractive looking blade. A PVD coating, which we will get back to in just a second, but actually when it comes to the blade, we do have our first bit of misinformation about this knife, because for a long time, I was under the impression that the Kershaw Deadline here had a 3.8 inch blade length, because that's what the Kershaw website says it has. So 3.8 inches is a little bit longer than what I would prefer to own, and so this knife really wasn't on my radar. I thought, man, it's really attractive. I wish that they made it in a smaller version, and sort of wrote it off. But then Blade HQ had it listed at 3.25 inches. And I thought that was weird, so I emailed them to tell them they were incorrect, and in fact, they were the right ones. And so I ended up picking up the knife at 3.25 inches, and I'm really thrilled that I did because, you know, I have the size that I want. But if you were someone who was looking for a 3.8 inch knife the way the Kershaw website, and I think a couple other websites have it listed, then yeah, maybe one to avoid. All right, so getting back to the blade though, a nice little bit of jimping on top. It is really actually functional. A lot of times, I don't know, jimping like this just seems slick and doesn't actually work, but you do get a decent amount of grip and traction on it, so yeah, I'm happy with that. You can see these marks on the PVD coating, and I guess I might as well talk about that now. And PVD stands for physical vapor deposit. I don't know exactly what that means or what the process is for the coating, but this just did not stand up at all. What I did is, out of the box, I used this knife pretty heavily for just a while. Just did some like cut tests with it in cardboard and in wood, and I decided just the first day not to clean it. I just decided I'm gonna leave the glue and the tape from the cutting. I'm gonna try to get that a little bit more focused, even though there's that glare. You can see those lines. I'm gonna leave all that on the blade for a while and not clean it and see how that coating reacts to it. And well, obviously it didn't react well. After like 8 hours, it was just the rest of the day, I tried to clean the knife and the coating either was stained or came off. I can't really tell. I think it just started to wear already though. And that's pretty disappointing. I mean, what you have here is a really attractive knife, you know, a neat looking knife, and immediately I'm in a situation where coating is already starting to go. So yeah, if you're gonna use this knife and clean it immediately, you might be okay. But man, I didn't do anything too crazy. I just, you know, just put the knife down and came back to it later, and already our finish is sort of done. So yeah, not too happy about that. One other thing, just in terms of the blade that was a bit of a surprise, was that it wasn't sharp out of the box. You know, Kershaw are generally extremely sharp, the 8CR13 MOV, but for that matter, all their knives, they do a really good job with out-of-box sharpness. And yeah, this one, it was usable, but it definitely wasn't what I would expect from them. So the good news with that, the Wharncliffe blade shape really allows you to touch it up easily, so I was able to do that, and we're all good. And while I've got this back down on the table, let's do some size comparisons real quickly. Here's a leak. You can see it's a little bit shorter than our new Deadline. And then here is the Benchmade 707. Same kind of situation. Pair of 3. So you can see this Deadline is just a little bit bigger. Pretty standard when it comes to overall size. And, you know, a couple people in the past day or two have been asking me about the size of this Ferrum Forge Falcon. And so if this is a knife you were interested in, that is how small that is. So more videos about this on the way, though. Very cool little knife. All right, but back to our Kershaw Deadline. So we've got our blade, nice looking blade, but again, just those issues there. And then as we move on back, we've got a nice satin look on the frame. And I really like that. I mean, it's nicely done. It's very attractive. Some people haven't liked the design. It sort of reminds me of like a billiards cue, you know, and I like that. I like the look of it. I like that design. But then all the interesting aspects of the knife, to be honest with you, are right inside here. And so that's what we're going to focus on for probably most of the rest of the video. All right, so taking a look at this right here, it seems to me that we have a liner lock. That's what it looks like. Doesn't look like a frame lock, but here's our next bit of misinformation, as I like to call it, because this is referred to as a frame lock in a lot of places, and that doesn't really make sense to me. All right, a frame lock for me means that the whole frame is moving over to engage the blade and lock the knife, right? In this case, what we have is the frame engaging with an inset piece of steel that itself is creating the lockup. I mean, to me, that's a liner, right? I mean, let me try to get in here and show you this. I mean, isn't that a liner? It's screwed into the rest of the frame, so it's not one piece. So I don't really consider this a frame lock knife. So again, maybe you do, but it's certainly not a traditional one, and definitely something to be aware of when, you know, you're buying a knife and expecting a frame lock, and all of a sudden you have something that's a little bit different. Yeah, not traditional in terms of the way they do the lockup. The good news is that the lockup is strong. What I have noticed is that over the course of flipping it over and over, which I'll show you in just a minute or two, over the course of flipping it over and over, the pivot does loosen a little bit. And when that pivot loosened, I did get a bit of a up and down. So I thought that there was a larger issue, which in fact there wasn't. It was just the pivot being loose. So still seems like a pretty sturdy and secure lock, but I don't know, for some people out there, it might not be the most, I don't know, might not be one that you'd want to depend on. I don't know. I'm sort of back and forth with it, and sorry to be indecisive on camera, but, you know, just looking at it now, I'm like, they could have done something differently, you know, and gone more traditional. And again, having no experience with a lock that's quite like this, I don't know how good I feel about it. You know, maybe it is just like any other liner lock and it'll hold up over time, but I don't know that, and I won't know that until, you know, this knife is years old. So we'll see if it continues to hold up and stay strong. But right now, it's pretty darn good. All right, so getting back to the rest of the knife, the action is manual. There's a manual flipper. It is on the ball bearing system, KVT. Great action on the knife. Really great. It's not silky smooth closing, so it's not going to drop. I mean, but it flies, and the detent is excellent. All right, and that's another big talking point, because there is a new and different kind of detent system that Kershaw has done with this knife, and it is called the TDS, the Tuned Detent System. And so what they're saying in their information, and who knows if I'm going to be able to actually show this accurately with the darkness of the camera, but what they're saying is that they have the tuned detent ball, and you can see there's a second ball. You know, there's the ball that you're traditionally going to see here in this like liner, and then up above there's a second one. And I guess the tuned detent system, if I'm not mistaken, is that it's a lot easier for them to shape that ball, that second ball, in order to create a stronger detent and make the knife fly open better. So just a little bit more precise, and in a budget knife, you know, when maybe you're not going the whole extra mile with every little detail, having that little bit of extra, I mean, it makes the action fantastic. Again, not silky smooth closing, but it is very difficult to break the detent without opening the knife all the way. And it is easy to break the detent in that, like, it doesn't take a lot of pressure. It's pretty close to perfect, I'd say. You know, exactly what you would want to see. And again, I'm sorry I'm getting out of focus again, but Yeah, exactly what you would want to see from that. So just really impressed with that aspect of it. You know, it's easy to flip. Just get that pressure and break the detent, and the knife is going to fly open. It holds closed really well. So, yeah, impressed with that aspect of it, definitely. All right, here's the knife in the closed position. Pretty good and attractive. Again, sorry for the glare. And then as we move back, we can see that we have a deep carry pocket clip, and it is reversible. And so we have the insert here to, the filler tab. And so if you wanted to flip it to the left side, you could take that tab out, flip the tab around, and it'll fit right into that other side. So that's pretty neat. So you don't have that gap. The fit and finish there isn't perfect, but I mean, it's perfectly fine. You know, it works just fine, and a neat little aspect of the knife. So that is basically what we have. You know, a lot of interesting characteristics, some misinformation. I like the knife. You know, I like the way that it feels in hand. I guess I didn't touch on that, but the ergonomics are pretty good. One concern with the ergonomics is just this liner, or whatever you want to call it. What you have with that is just when your fingers are wrapped around, it does pinch a little bit, but that can adjust out, and you can figure out your grip a little bit better. What I was doing was, instead of gripping it really tight, I was actually loosening at the forefinger, and it worked really well. Just loosening a little bit and gripping more onto the side, and yeah, it worked really well. All right, and we do have some points of contact here on the side, so definitely comfortable. Even though it's slick, I don't feel like this is going to slide out of your hand. The butt here of the knife, for me at least in my hands, digs a little bit into the palm, but it's not sharp, so it actually adds to the security. So I like that. So that's ergonomics. Overall, guys, this is, I don't know, it's an interesting knife. I guess that's what I started with, and that's sort of how I need to start the finish, is it's an interesting knife. I am going to do a follow-up video on this because my plan for this knife is to modify it. At this point with the coating, just disappointed with that. I am going to end up removing the coating and, putting a new finish on the blade. And when I do that, I'll probably try to anodize the frame and see what happens there. And I'll do a follow-up so that we can get a good look at that detent system while the knife is apart, because I haven't taken the knife apart yet. So looking forward to all that. So stay tuned for the follow-up. But any questions, comments, complaints, suggestions, let me know down below. But yeah, $31 price point for this knife. It is pretty neat. So yeah, check it out if you like, but there are definitely some things that might hold you back from that. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care. Have a good one.